Well, here we are in another of the series of the mini reel-to-reel tape recorder repairs. These are of real fascination to me because they represent the early 1960s engineering attempts to make recording accessible to the common man, I guess you would say, affordable reel-to-reel tape recorders. The engineering of these recorders clearly were trying to address the economy and making little tape recorders available to everyone. And so they used the rim drive technology. The motors would drive the rim of the spindle rather than doing a capstan drive, which adds a layer of complexity to the um, geometry and the mechanics of the tape transport system. So almost all of the tape recorders that I have done in this series are rim drive rather than capstan drive. And in addition to that, almost all of the tape recorders that I have repaired in this series are DC bias. And for those of you that are watching these series as technicians, you know what that involves and why that's significant. It was an early attempt to address the unique nature of the ability of the tape itself to record audio. And so the engineering of the biasing that placed the magnetic information onto the tape was a compromise. They used a DC biasing technique in order to be able to get the best quality of audio at the time. And then a few years later, they discovered AC bias, and by that time, the compact cassette had come out, and they were now incorporating AC bias on compact cassettes, and so the reel tapes began to disappear quickly from the scene. So most of the tape recorders that I have, that I've demonstrated in this series, they're they are DC bias, and so the audio quality suffers, particularly when you listen to music. But not only music, you can hear the inferior recording quality. And when I say inferior quality, for the day, it was great. It was great to be able to record your kids, your pets, lectures, concerts, those kinds of things on the reel-to-reel tapes, or to just have a conversation and then mail the tape to your friend or your family member and let them listen to the things going on in your home. So it served a great purpose in 1960. So today we're going to look at the Continental tape recorder TP410. This tape recorder came in a nice box and a styrofoam insert, and I will show you the tape recorder now, and we'll go through a repair sequence just to give some of you technicians some thoughts, and maybe you can offer your suggestions to me as to how to improve my repair techniques. Otherwise, I would just appreciate some comments from you, and be sure to subscribe. I'm not getting any monetary benefit at all from these uh, recordings, but it's just a joy for me to be able to share my hobby with you. And I appreciate the comments that some of you place in the comment sections along the way. I get emails from guys asking questions about the availability of supplies or test equipment, that kind of thing. But again, I enjoy being here with you in YouTube. We're going to go through a Continental tape recorder, TP410. This came in eBay. I paid $16 for it, I think. Yeah, $16. And as you can see, it's missing a label, the Continental label, but I'm going to 3D print one, and we'll replace that. pretty cute little unit here. It's got an opening here for the volume, as you can see. Had a place for a carrying strap. Controls were accessible from the front. And you had the record microphone and the earphone. Nice little emblems they included there. Then they had the Continental label here with the battery compartment. We'll take a look at that, see what condition it's in. I'm not even sure. The control arm here is broken. As you can see, the ends are snapped off. So I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet with that. I think there was even a little spring down in that hole probably, and a ball bearing that would, and so that fit right here and would snap up, and then you could control the thing, and then it would snap back down in the lower position like that. So for storage. So this came with a couple of reels, like a reel of audio. I've got them all mixed up now. Got a whole basket full of 3-inch, 3.5, 2, whatever the sizes are. See, here's some smaller reels. So it and the lid is removable. So it takes the different size reels, which is nice. It has a tape path guides here and here, and I like the chrome accoutrements. How do you like that? That's a word for today. So let's get into it and see if we can get it to play. Even the record, play, off, and rewind label is beautiful, nice and chrome. So Continental really did a good job. Steel hinges, unlike a lot of the other ones that used plastic hinges that would break. Even steel retaining clips for the lid to pop into place. Pop into place like that. So with a new Continental label here, this thing will look like new when it's finished. The plastic's in pretty good shape. There are a few scratches, but I'll use some plastic polish on this and get this cleaned up and shiny once again. So let's replace the batteries. Oh, you can see here I got a pile of capacitors that I've replaced in a couple of other tape recorders that I haven't done a video on, but I'm going to show them, feature them. I'll try to include them just to show you the additions to the collection. Super cheap on eBay. Great diversion during this time of isolation and the COVID. So let's move ahead with the Continental TP410. All right, we're going to pop the battery compartment open. Find something to open it with. I don't have any coins handy. There we go. All right. Actually, it looks like it's very clean. Very clean. There's no corrosion on any of the battery terminals. So, and again, like all of these others that we've seen, take two 1.5 volt batteries and a 9 volt battery for the amplifier electronic system. So they use two different battery systems to control these. So let's pop a couple batteries in here and let's see if we can get it to the transport system to work. Oh, I hear a motor running already. Let's turn that off for the time being. That's a good sign. Alright, I'm not going to hook the amplifier up just yet. We'll see if we can keep those in there and get the transport to move. Play. Alright. There's play. rewind. Okay, so rewind uses both batteries and play uses one. Alright, let's go ahead and put a 9-volt battery in there. Let's see if we hear any scratching on play. Yes. There is a little bit of scratching. Hear it? And then of course the motor's running or trying to run. So this is bound up for sure. So let's take the tape out. Oh yeah, that's bound up tight. This one's still pretty stiff. You put it on play, it should be free running, and it's real stiff. And this one's not running at all, so we're probably burning the tires up. These have little screw type caps on them to hold the spindles on, which is a nice feature and a nice quality touch. Pretty impressed with the Continental so far. So let's pull the screws out, lift the system out, and take a look at the insides. See, our audio connections are here, microphone and headphone. Then our battery connections are here. And you can see they're using one battery for play and 2 batteries for rewind. Multifunction switch. Sorry, let me get this on camera a little better. There we go. We'll use our little General Electric to hold this up. And there we go. And then I'm going to bring some more light in on the subject. That'll help too. So a little tiny speaker, a little 2-inch speaker here. And let's see, 742, probably that number on the speaker. The speakers, oh, this is loose, missing a screw here. It maybe was inside. I didn't see it inside as we opened it up. There's a screw missing on the circuit board. These sometimes are date codes. It could be a 1962. We'll look it up and see if we can find the Continental tape recorder serial numbers and see if we can identify. Okay, so this is the play reel, and I want you to look. I'm going to zoom in here. This tire, I'm going to rip some wires loose if I'm not careful, but I really want you to see this. This tire right here is bound. Look at that. It's just crushed into the motor is just crushed right into the tire. And sadly, look at the notch in that tire. Really bad. So this is going to be a mess. There's the notch. See it? Okay, my camera is telling me that focusing is failing. Right there. Look at that notch. So what we're going to have to do is I'm going to take some rubberized glue, and try to fill that in and then shave it down, because that is completely shot. There's no way that's going to work. It'll just drop in there and lock up like it just did right there. So we definitely have got an issue there
right off the bat. And then the rewind is got a smaller wheel, as you can see there, and it's as hard as a rock, the rewind tire. So we've got some work to do there to get the transport system working. So the little bitty circuit board has got some capacitors that may or may not need to be replaced. We'll just take it one step at a time. So let me get this taken apart, and we're going to fix this tire. We're going to start that process, and then I'll fill that with some glue, and we'll let that dry overnight, and then we'll shave it down and see if we can get it to actually smooth out, because that's going to be a problem. As you can see, it's gonna lock right down on us. I'm trying to figure out how to take this off. I'm wondering if it just slides on there, or if there's a set screw or something. But all of these screws have to come out in order for the transport to come apart. So I've got all of these upper screws out. I just need to pull these two screws out. But then, of course, I've got this that needs to come off. I suspect it's just a splined fit, but let me get a little closer and look and see what's going on there. For 30 minutes to get this off, and this is the control knob, and as you can see, I showed you earlier that the thing has been broken, but there's a set screw there that goes through and grabs both sides. So I think I can print one of these handles, and it may be strong enough. I don't know. We'll have to see. If I print one and anneal it, it might work. Don't have to have one, but it sure would be nice. It's such a beautiful little tape recorder. So here is the whole shebang. It all kind of comes out in one big chunk, and it's a pretty big mess. So there's the underside of the circuit board, or the top side, as the case may be. And you can see that there are, let's see, one, two, well, let me get you on camera here. There's 1, 2 capacitors there, capacitor here, 4, 5, 6. My hands are shaky. So 6 capacitors that will probably need to be replaced. It's 4 transistor amplifier, as you've seen before in a lot of these little units. So a pretty simple setup, really. 4 transistors and a handful of other components. So let's see, and to give you some perspective on the size of the back of the circuit board, there's a C-size battery next to it. So it's pretty small. Everything's pretty small, comparatively speaking. So this is the rewind spindle and the play spindle with its notched out tire. So let's take that off. Okay, that's fine. We'll leave it down in there. Pull this off, and let's take a look at it. There, see that big notch? It's gonna be a challenge to fix that. Well, I've never seen one that bad. So we'll work on that, and that's going to take a couple of days to dry
or a day or so to dry when we put some rubber material on there. But we'll get everything else working and cleaned up and oiled. There's the spline that the control knob fits, the spline there. So there we have it. You see I cleaned up the surface so I can get that to glue. Now you may ask, well, why don't you just 3D print a flex printed tire? And the reason that I don't want to do that, and yes, it could be done, is that it's going to be a complex print, and this surface is hard to get smooth and even on a 3D print. Plus, getting this tire off, and it's as hard as a rock now. I suppose, see, I can scratch them with my nail. It's just as hard as a rock. Getting this tire off of this rim, it would just completely destroy the tire. And then I'm not sure. I don't know. I guess I'm thinking out loud here. I may have to print a tire for this. And in fact, if I just printed half of a tire, I don't need to have it bonded on both sides. I could just cut this one off and glue the other tire to the back, to the bottom, and only print a half a tire. Since the motor is riding only on this surface right here where my thumbnail's touching, it doesn't ride on this flat surface here. So I could probably print a tire for this and it would work just fine. In fact, that may be what I'll have to do. I am going to try to put some Flex Seal in here and then let it dry and then grind it down flat. And we'll see if that works. I can't make it any worse, that's for sure, because it's definitely not going to work the way it's set up right now. Alright, I've got my first coat of sealant on there. It's a rubberized sealant, so hopefully it'll dry. It'll probably shrink a little, and then I'll put another coat on there, and then we'll see if it actually works. This is so hard. I just don't know. We'll end up for sure putting a heat shrink tip on this motor so that it'll actually grip that hard rubber, which I've done on many other tape recorders, as you've seen me do. We just put a short piece of heat shrink tubing here and heat shrink that on there, and then that heat shrink grips these tires much better. So let's get the rest of this apart. These are very stiff, so that the grease has hardened and has caused these to drag pretty badly. I changed my mind on the Flex Seal, mainly because the tire is so hard. It doesn't need to be rubberized material, and it takes 48 hours to 7 days to cure, and I don't want to take that long. So what I put is a drop of sealant glue here that's supposed to dry within a couple of hours, and then I'll sand that down to where it'll be just a hard surface along with everything else. And then if we put a heat shrink sleeve on the drive motor, it should grip across this surface pretty evenly. So that's what I decided to do. So we'll just let this dry for the day, and I'll continue to work on the rest of the tape recorder. This is the rewind spindle, and that tire is as hard as stone, so I'm going to just smooth it out. Try to do this one-handed. Take the any bumps off of that hardened rubber. This is just some medium grain sandpaper. Alright, well, that took the edges off. I'll clean that up, and then we may have to also put a piece of heat shrink on the rewind drive brass piece right there, because I suspect it won't grip this hardened rubber tire. This is some pinch roller cleaner and rejuvenator chemical that I found. You can look this up on the internet and find it through eBay. It's a little pricey for a little tiny bottle, but I'm going to put some of that on here in hopes that it might soften the surface of that rubber up just a little bit. Okay, this stuff is pretty strong, and in fact I got it on a little cut on my finger, and it burnt like fire. It's like pouring alcohol. I don't know what it's made of, but it's pretty powerful. You're supposed to leave it on for a couple minutes and then wipe it off with a wet rag with soap and water, and it's supposed to restore the luster of the rubber. But again, it's designed for pinch rollers, which is made of the same material basically as what we're working with here. I've used it on a lot of my tape recorders that I've repaired these past few months, and it seems to work pretty good. So I'm going to wash this off, and you'll look at the finished product. Okay, I just washed this off with a cleaning rag, wet, just water, and it really did restore some of the rubber surface of the tire. It's got a little bit, just a little bit of grip. So we'll see how it works with the drive over here connecting to the tire here surface, and then if it doesn't work, we can put some heat shrink on that drive, and that should correct the drive. The rewind's not as critical because it's just rewind, right? The most important one is the playback, and that's got to be right, and it's got to be consistent, or we get too much wow and flutter distortion in the final product. Okay, I've got the motor running now. Let's engage it in rewind and see if it works. Look at that. Works great. Alrighty, I wanted to show you what I've done here. The control arm that controls the rewind, play, and record is the arm was broken, as you remember, and the tip was snapped off. So I designed and printed a 3D version, 3D plastic version, using the gold PLA, and it turned out real nice. I'm really proud of it.
and it works just fine. It's printed solid, so it's pretty strong, and will work just fine for a replacement broken piece of metal. I think I'm going to tape this to the inside of the case just so I can keep it. And so 50 years from now, when the next tech goes in here to work on it, he can find this piece. By then, 3D printers will be printing this material right off of the print bed. So anyway, thought you might find that interesting, a 3D printed extension for the control. Right, here's the play tire, and I've sanded down the glue spot there, and it's pretty smooth. Might need to take it just a little more. We'll see if it bumps when we play it, run it through the player here. So let's go ahead and put it on. We'll grease the hub a little bit, and let's see how it does. Put a cap on there to hold it down. Oh, that's not the right one. Here it is. Okay. So now I'm going to try to hold this up, and we'll see how it does. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of a bump. Which will translate into a bump on the tape. So let's sand it just a little more. Okay, that feels a little better. Let's see, I'll wipe it off. All right. Okay, that's rewind, by the way. It works beautifully. All right, here we go. Hold it up here. Okay, much better. Still just ever so slight. And if you look at the motor, I'm going to zoom in here. Let me lower the camera. I'm going to zoom in here. You watch the motor. You can see it riding up and down just slightly. But we'll try taking off just a little bit more and maybe get that motor to stop moving. The problem is, if we don't do something to get that tire completely flat, then it's introducing wow and flutter into the music. So I'm going to sand this a little more and put it back on, and we'll test it one more time. Well, if you've watched this far, you know that there's a lot of little tweaks and adjustments and tests that go into repairing a little tape recorder like this. So the end result was that I got all of the pieces put back together and tested, and now have the tape recorder back together, and I've had a chance to do a couple of little initial tests So let's take a look at this wrap-up section here of the Continental TP410. Well, here we are with the finished product of the Continental little mini tape recorder TP410. Beautiful, detailed Continental tape recorder with the 3D printed Continental label and a 3D printed control arm for the rewind and play and record. Cleaned up beautifully, and it's a beautiful little tape recorder. You may recall the tires on these two spindles were in really bad shape, and so I have used the rubber rejuvenator material on them and have repaired the notch that was left in this playback. So let's just listen to an actual recording that I just made for the tape player.
This is a test of the Continental TP410, TP410. Beautiful little tape recorder. Vintage 1960s, has been refurbished. All new capacitors have been put in it, and the rubber tires have been rejuvenated. The motor has been oiled. A couple of other electronics and mechanical issues resolved.
Notice the pitch dropping.
The tires are still pretty hard and probably need to be replaced. But other than that, I believe the Continental TP410 is working correctly. We also 3D printed a control knob arm extension and 3D printed a Continental label for the top of the cover. So let's rewind this tape and see how this audio recording has turned out.
Okay, in terms of the beauty of a little tape recorder, this has got to be one of my favorites. It's very small, but and compact. It is missing a strap. As you can see here, it has the place for a lanyard to carry it portably. But there we have the Continental model TP410 by Continental Corporation, I guess, made in Japan. Let me have your comments, questions, and thanks again for watching my Vintage Electronics channel.